Hi, today we're going to take a look at vacuum fluorescent displays, or VFDs. Now, this one was sent into the mailbag segment. Sorry, I forgot who sent it in, but thank you very much. And it is a complete vacuum fluorescent display module from a company called Babcock here, and it's custom designed by them. It's like a, I don't know, count the number of characters by 2 lines, and you've no doubt seen these vacuum fluorescent displays. They're common on audio gear and things like that. Incredibly common in the 70s and 80s for all sorts of gear. Old calculators and things like that used to have vacuum fluorescent displays, and they've got lots of good qualities to them. They're really bright, so they can be used in really high ambient light environments, but you can dim them really low as well. And they just look beautiful, I think, vacuum fluorescent displays. So still popular even today, although they're quite delicate and fragile, and they can age, because hence the name vacuum fluorescent display. They are actually, there is a vacuum inside there. You can see that port there. That is the vacuum extraction port to suck all the air out of these things, and they've got a glass top on them, so yeah, they are a little bit delicate. This one's had a little chip taken out of it, but I believe the vacuum inside is just fine and dandy. And this one's not only dot matrix, but it's got a cursor underneath as well, as you can see under each one. Very quick explanation time here of how vacuum fluorescent displays work if you haven't seen them before, and we'll be able to physically see the construction of this inside the unit. I'll show you in a minute. Now, what we've got here, please excuse the crudity of this model, didn't have time to build it to scale or to paint it. We've got 3 different elements here to a vacuum fluorescent display. All this stuff is inside a vacuum, hence the name, vacuum fluorescent display. Now, on the bottom of the unit here, so this is the bottom, this is the middle, and this red one is the top here. On the bottom in blue, we've got our anode, and that is a phosphor-coated element. Phosphor, like your fluorescent tubes for your lights, for example. When electrons strike them, they actually fluoresce and generate light, and that's where the light is coming from. So that's on the base of the display here, and I've shown like a 3x4 dot matrix display, but it can be a 7-segment display. It could be practically any unlimited weird shape you want. You just shape it in whatever thing you want, and it's a conductive element coated in a fluorescent material. Now, on top of that, we have a grid mesh, a very fine metal mesh, and that has to be as see-through as possible. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the light coming out from the anode elements on the back here. So that's why the vacuum fluorescent displays have that sort of wire meshy kind of look, you know, that sort of not completely solid look, because you're actually looking through a metal mesh, but it's a very important aspect to it. And then on top, you've probably seen these if you've looked at vacuum fluorescent displays. You'll typically have 2 wires strung from end to end. In this case, we'll see them actually run all the way over all of the individual characters on our dot matrix display here. So these are just 2 wires on top, and this is the cathode, and they're made of tungsten wire, and they're the things that actually emit the electrons. So these things work exactly like old school triode valves. We've got ourselves the cathode filament here, so you put usually an AC voltage on that, and that heats up and generates electrons. They burn off the surface, and then they can head towards and bounce off the fluorescent material on the anode. So what we do, I've shown these 3 here in the different, because they're physically constructed like this. In this case, the cathode up the top, it's going to be negative potential compared to the anode down here. So we put a positive voltage on here relative to our cathode filament here, and bingo, our electrons peel off here, and if assuming that the grid is not there, and they're attracted towards the positive anode down here, and of course when an electron hits that fluorescent material, it glows, and the entire surface of that particular element, or whatever the shape, the 7-segment display, or you know, a little animal or something on there, you can have any shape you want. So when you've got a grid here like this in the middle, you put that at the same positive potential as the anode down here, and the electrons being emitted by the cathode can just go straight through the grid and fluoresce the anode. But if you want to turn that particular segment off, then you just put that to the same negative potential as the cathodes, and then the electrons are still coming off here, but they're just going to bounce back like that. They're not going to get through to the anode, so the anode doesn't glow. And what sort of voltages are we talking about here? Well, this filament here will be typically around about 4.5 volts RMS, for example, might be a typical filament supply value, as so that is an AC signal there to generate the electrons. What do we need to the anode? Well, this positive potential here relative to this cathode up here, you're talking about 20 volts or thereabouts, maybe up to 30 volts, maybe as low as 15, maybe 15 to 30 is about a typical range for that. Now the voltages can actually be a bit higher here, and they can be lower here for the filament drive voltage, for example. We're just talking like ballpark examples here. And as you might suspect, the filament current here, because it's just a tungsten wire, is going to be quite high current. So it's going to be responsible for the main current draw of one of these vacuum fluorescent displays. And of course, on something like a dot matrix display here, you're going to be driving these as a multiplexed display. You're not going to drive these statically with each one. So maybe like a single 7-segment display, you might drive statically, for example. But even when you got, say, 10 7-segment display characters, then you're pretty much going to drive a multiplex just like you would a regular LED display. But of course, the problem with the high voltages here is that you can't drive these with your typical TTL logic. You probably can't even drive these with 4000 series CMOS up to 15 volts, for example. You might be able to get away with it. I think some people have actually done that, but you pretty much need discrete high voltage either individual transistor drivers for these things or dedicated VFD display driver chips, which you'll find typically on one of these things. They won't be using discrete transistors here. So that's the annoying part about vacuum fluorescent displays, is that if you don't actually have the controller attached to it and actually, as we're going to try and do here, actually reverse engineer the controller and figure out how to drive it, then if you've just got the vacuum fluorescent display with the bare pins sticking out, then you've really got your work cut out for you. You've got to do the high voltage drivers, the multiplex, you've got to do the AC filament supply and all that sort of stuff. And well, you can argue it's not really worth the effort. So if we have a look inside this Babcock vacuum fluorescent display, we'll see exactly the same elements that we were talking about on the whiteboard there. And there you go, you can clearly see the cathode tungsten wires going across the top like that, and you can see that they're physically on the top due to the parallax there, and you can see that they're all joined down to this metal strip here, so they're all electrically connected, and also to the ones up here. They've just got 3 going across like that. It's very common to have 2, for example, but these are relatively high, so they've decided to put 3 on here. And the other really interesting thing is that you can see the grid down in there really very clearly, and each one is separate. You can see electrically isolated between these 2 characters. So these 2 characters on the top and bottom display are sharing the one grid there. And if you move the display around like that, you can actually see that the grid is actually sandwiched between the anode and the cathode, as we saw on the whiteboard. And then the anode driver chips, the Texas Instruments TL4810, and I'll link in the datasheet down below. These are nominal 60 volt output rated, I think 40 milliamps current capability as well. So these are typical VFD display driver chips. They've got 5 of those here outside the display, and hidden under the display, which we can't see, there's another 7 of them, I believe. So on the board itself, we have the vacuum fluorescent display module, which is all socketed. Very nice. You could actually lift that out, but imagine the pin force actually required to lift that out, geez, without breaking the glass top on there. I wouldn't like to attempt to do that, only if you had to. You certainly wouldn't just lever it up at one end and hope it comes out. That is an absolute monster. We've got our filament and high voltage display driver over here. We've got a bodged sort of heatsink just bent over the edge there like that. Anyway, this is designed to go into a bit of gear, so it doesn't really matter. Power input, which we'll take a look at. We've got those display drivers I talked about. There's another 7 under there by the looks of it. So there you go. There's a whole bunch of them. They're just, by the way, serial input, latched output. Look, it's going into a test sequence where it just writes all the characters. But anyway, if you like that, please give it a big thumbs up, because that helps a lot. And if you want to discuss it, jump on over to the EEVblog forum, leave YouTube comments, leave EEVblog.com comments, all that sort of stuff. Catch you next time.